I'm Priyadip Ray. I'm a research scientist in the machine learning group in the computational engineering division. I primarily work in the area of machine learning and AI, artificial intelligence, and trying to model big data sets and gain insights from such data sets. A lot of the COVID-19 work started very early on, and there was a push from DOE to kind of get resources, scientific resources to work in that area. We were doing kind of more at a patient-specific level, trying to predict something for a single patient. Now we try to scale it up, if we can, in the near future. Look at health record data of everybody in this country and make such predictions at an individual level and then integrate it. Then we can potentially now detect signatures much faster, much earlier than what we can presently do. A lot of my kind of inspiration came from my dad. He's a physicist. He did research in X-ray crystallography. But that kind of, I'm sure that kind of inspired me to be more deeply interested in physics, and then more applied physics, and then engineering. So looking at this kind of big picture that science can translate and do something that's potentially very impactful, I think that's what fascinates me about engineering. If you're really interested in engineering, something that I would like to consider you doing is that get involved in projects. It need not be directly always related to what you're interested in doing, and that's the thing. That this will give you that bigger picture view, and that will help you succeed later in life. As you go from undergrad to grad to Ph.D, you're getting more and more specialized, which is great. But if you are able to connect things together, if you know what to connect together, and if you know connecting what will have the largest impact, I think that will potentially help you succeed a lot.